lifetime or the working out of karma across multiple lifetimes. The Ethiopian preservation of these interpretations suggests that early Christianity offered a more sophisticated spiritual cosmology than what survived the councils and purges. The evidence keeps mounting. If you want to dive deeper into historical discoveries like this, consider joining our membership community. Click Join below. Let's uncover truth together. But if church authorities were willing to remove entire doctrines from Christianity, what about the events everyone thinks they know? What about the crucifixion itself? Because the Ethiopian texts contain details about Jesus' death that are so specific, so forensic, so disturbing, that you'll understand why they were deemed too graphic for official scripture. The crucifixion is Christianity's central event. Every church displays the cross. Every Christian knows Jesus died on one. But what actually happened during those 6 hours on Golgotha? Most people have a sanitized mental image. Jesus on a relatively clean cross, perhaps with a few drops of blood, dying peacefully while forgiving his executioners. It's terrible, but bearable to imagine. The Ethiopian texts tell a different story. And when you read their accounts alongside modern forensic research on crucifixion, you realize the full horror was deliberately removed from official scripture. The Acts of Pilate, preserved in Ethiopian manuscripts and also known as the Gospel of Nicodemus, provides details that the canonical Gospels omit. According to this text, the crucifixion was witnessed by numerous people who later testified about what they saw, heard, and experienced. The account describes the precise location, a hill called Cranion, Skull Place, positioned where executions were publicly visible as deterrents. It describes the timing, beginning around the 3rd hour, 9 a.m., with the walk to Golgotha, culminating in death around the 9th hour, 3 p.m. But it's the physical details that are stunning. The text describes how Roman soldiers stripped Jesus completely naked, standard practice for crucifixion, designed to maximize humiliation. Most artistic depictions show Jesus with a loincloth, protecting viewer sensibilities. Roman crucifixion included no such modesty. It describes the crowd's size and diversity, not just hostile religious leaders, but also mourners, curiosity seekers, and women who followed from Galilee. It names witnesses beyond the canonical few: Nicodemus, Joseph of Arimathea, numerous women, even some Pharisees who were privately sympathetic. The Ethiopian text describes the method. Soldiers placed Jesus face down on the crossbeam, drove nails through his forearms, not palms. Palms can't support body weight. Then hoisted the beam onto the vertical post. They nailed his feet, one over the other, using a single large nail. Why these details? Because they align with modern forensic analysis of crucifixion. Dr. Frederick Zugiber, a medical examiner who conducted extensive research on crucifixion mechanics, concluded that victims died from a combination of factors: hypovolemic shock from blood loss, exhaustion leading to asphyxiation as breathing became impossible, and traumatic shock from sustained pain. The Ethiopian accounts describe all of this. They describe Jesus struggling to breathe, pushing up on the nail through his feet to inhale, then collapsing as muscles failed, creating a cycle of suffocation and temporary relief that could last for days. They describe the progressive symptoms: extreme thirst, fever, delirium, muscle cramping. They describe the moment a soldier thrust a spear into Jesus' side and blood and water flowed out, a detail all 4 Gospels mention, but don't explain. Medical analysis reveals this indicates the spear pierced the pericardium, the sac around the heart, where serum separates from blood cells before death. The canonical Gospels mention darkness covering the land from noon to 3 p.m. The Ethiopian texts elaborate. Witnesses described it as unnatural, terrifying, nothing like a typical storm. Some thought it was divine judgment. Others feared the end of the world. But here's what's most striking. The Ethiopian accounts emphasize eyewitness testimony. They name people who were there, who saw, who later told their stories to early Christian communities. These weren't vague traditions. They were specific accounts preserved by people who considered them historically important. Why were these details removed from official scripture? Partly because they're unbearably graphic. The crucifixion was torture designed to be so horrific that its mere threat would ensure compliance. Describing the full reality would traumatize congregations. But there's another reason. The details humanize Jesus in uncomfortable ways. They show him in complete vulnerability, in degrading humiliation, in animal suffering. The Church wanted to emphasize his divine nature and his choice to suffer. Extended descriptions of his very human agony complicated that theological message. The Ethiopian texts don't shy away from this humanity. They describe Jesus crying out in pain. They describe his body's progressive failure. They describe the indignity, the mockery, the absolute degradation. And they describe something else the canonical Gospels mention only briefly, the moment Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" The Ethiopian accounts suggest this wasn't a mere quotation of Psalm 22. According to witnesses preserved in these texts, Jesus experienced genuine abandonment, genuine doubt, genuine despair in that moment. The divine presence he had known his entire life suddenly withdrew. He faced death completely alone, completely human, without the comfort of certainty. This raises profound theological questions that make church authorities uncomfortable. If Jesus truly felt forsaken by God, what does that mean about the nature of the incarnation? What does it mean about suffering? What does it mean about the moments when we feel forsaken? The Ethiopian preservation of these uncomfortable details suggests that early Christians understood something modern theology often misses. Jesus' divinity wasn't despite his humanity, it was through it. The miracle wasn't that a divine being suffered a bit before resurrection. The miracle was that the divine entered fully into human experience, including its darkest moments, and somehow transformed it. Where in the world are you watching from? It amazes me that these historical revelations are reaching truth seekers across continents. Drop your country or city below. Let's build a global community of investigators. But the crucifixion wasn't the end of the story. Everyone knows about the resurrection. What they don't know is what happened during the 3 days between death and resurrection. Because the Ethiopian texts describe where Jesus' spirit went, what he did, and why this part of the story was almost completely erased. What happened between Good Friday afternoon and Easter Sunday morning? If you ask most Christians, they'll say Jesus was dead, in the tomb, awaiting resurrection. Some might vaguely reference descended into hell from the Apostles' Creed, but few can explain what that actually means. The Ethiopian texts can, and what they describe is far stranger and more significant than most modern Christians realize. The Gospel of Nicodemus, Part 2, preserved in Ethiopian manuscripts and known as the Descensus Christi ad Inferos, Christ's descent into Hades, provides a detailed account of Jesus' journey during those 3 days. According to this text, immediately after his death, Jesus' spirit descended to Sheol, the Hebrew underworld, the place of the dead, not the burning hell of medieval imagination, but the shadowy realm where all souls went after death, waiting. The account describes this from the perspective of 2 men who were there, Simeon's sons who died shortly before Jesus and witnessed his arrival in Sheol. They testified after they were resurrected. Matthew 27 briefly mentions many dead being raised when Jesus died. This text provides their testimony. They describe Sheol as a place of darkness where the righteous dead from all history waited: Adam, Eve, Abraham, Moses, David, the prophets, John the Baptist. They were trapped there because, according to Jewish theology, the gates of paradise had been closed since the fall. No one could enter heaven until the Messiah opened the way. Then, according to these witnesses, a brilliant light shattered the darkness. Satan and the demons of Sheol cried out in fear, "Who is this that brings light to our realm of death?" Jesus appeared, radiant, powerful. He smashed the gates of Sheol. The text says he literally broke the chains, destroyed the locks, shattered the bronze gates. He declared the captives free. Then, according to the Ethiopian account, Jesus took Adam by the hand, humanity's first father, and led him out. Behind them came the patriarchs, the prophets, all the righteous dead from before Christ's time. Jesus led them from death to life, from Sheol to paradise. This is called the harrowing of hell in Christian tradition, and it was a major theme in early Christianity. Eastern Orthodox churches still emphasize it. Icons of the resurrection typically show Jesus trampling broken gates and chains, pulling Adam and Eve from their tombs. But Western Christianity, particularly Protestantism, mostly forgot this story. Why? Partly because it raises uncomfortable questions about everyone who died before Jesus. Were they all stuck in limbo? The Catholic doctrine of purgatory attempted to address this. Protestant theology, rejecting purgatory, largely dropped the entire narrative. But the Ethiopian church preserved it because it answered crucial theological questions. What happened to righteous people who died before Christ? How did Jesus' sacrifice affect them? What was he doing during the 3 days? The account also has profound symbolic meaning. Jesus doesn't simply resurrect from death, he conquers death itself. He doesn't merely escape the grave, he liberates all who are imprisoned by death. His resurrection isn't just personal victory, it's cosmic victory. Dr. Bart Ehrman notes that early Christian preaching emphasized Christ's victory over death, hell, and Satan far more than later atonement theories about satisfying God's justice. According to early accounts, the crucifixion was the bait, the resurrection was the hook, and the harrowing was the catch. Jesus tricked the powers of death into killing him, giving him access to their realm, where he destroyed their power forever. This makes the resurrection more than a miracle. It becomes a prison break. Jesus doesn't leave anyone behind. He brings the entire captive community with him. The Ethiopian texts emphasize that this was prophesied. When the demons ask, "Who is this?" the righteous dead answer by quoting Psalm 24, "Lift up your heads, O gates. Be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in." Early Christian artwork extensively depicted the harrowing. Catacombs in Rome show Jesus pulling souls from tombs. Byzantine mosaics show him standing on shattered gates. Medieval mystery plays dramatized the confrontation between Jesus and Satan in hell. Then gradually, the story faded from Western Christianity. The focus shifted to the crucifixion as payment for sin, the resurrection as proof of divinity. The dramatic rescue mission in the realm of death became a footnote or was forgotten entirely. But in Ethiopia, the story remained central.